Hey everybody, Brad here, aka ShambazzleGames at ShambazzleGames on Twitter with your Dungeons and Dragons news right here on the Speaking Common podcast for the week of Saturday, December 14th. Welcome everyone, it's a beautiful Saturday. I'm so happy to be back delivering the news today. We had a couple of weeks of hiatus, which were really nice, but I did miss it. So I'm looking forward to getting caught up with you on all the excellent news that's hit the airwaves, or the internets, I guess, for that matter, in the Dungeons and Dragons environment and the hobby that we love and share. So to start off, as always, we'll jump into some quick community updates. I do have a couple of changes that are going to happen in and around the content that I'm creating over the holidays, as we tend to wind down and focus on relaxation and food and maybe a beverage or two. And if you're spending it with family, then definitely a beverage or two. In my case, at least. We do have a bit of a holiday wind down plan. It doesn't mean that I'm going to stop producing content or really dial back too much, but I did want to reshape my focus to hone in on content that I want to create personally. So first party original content that I want to make and share with the community. So far, we've built a really great community around some of the content that I've curated over Twitter at ShambazzleGames and some of the other properties that we've reached out into. But I want to make sure that I'm focusing on creating the content that I want to build and hopefully add some value to the community that way. So keep an eye out for the holiday wind down that's going to happen. We're going to be dialing back a little bit. Of course, I'm going to keep a focus on some of the more popular content types that I've been delivering out over Twitter, like our DM Describes, our question of the days, and of course our DM and player tips, and all those other great discussion starters and thought wheels that we create in the D&D space on Twitter. But I'll actually be beefing it up with more Dungeons and Dragons news, interviews that we're producing in the space, and special features videos. So this actually means that I'm going to be producing more content overall, but I'll be dialing back on the curated and stepping up more on the organic and first party content that I'm creating for both YouTube, podcasts, map making, miniature painting, and all that good stuff that I enjoyed doing. One of the big objectives that I have for that 2-week period leading into holiday is to complete the editing of the first season of Charisma Check. So Charisma Check is our long-running narrative-driven D&D actual play podcast, which features some of my closest friends from the community theater space. They're really great folks. We're highly committed to the character with an amazing story that's plays out more like an audio drama, but of course involves all the great tenets of Dungeons and Dragons like exploration, social, and combat, and it's edited down into a really nice, neat, storied experience, and I really hope you like it. We've put a lot of work into it, but it became a little bit too much for me to keep up with week to week, so I took a step back, decided I'm just going to batch the whole thing. We're going to edit and produce the entire first season so you can enjoy it in all its binge-worthy goodness. We've got lots of great content to get through for you, but hopefully if people enjoy that season 1, then by the time you complete it, season 2 will be on the way and coming down the pipe. The other objective that I have for the last 2 weeks of December while we wind down is to focus on the launch of my website, www.ShambazzleGames.com. I really need now, with all the content that we're producing, to create a hub where we can funnel all that stuff into and give people kind of a one-stop shop if they want to go and see what we've done or have been doing in the article space and the editorial space and all the videos that we produce on YouTube and some of the new platforms that we're reaching out into as well. We have new Dungeon Masterful content coming next week. I had the pleasure of sitting down with some of the greatest, brightest new creators in the DM space. And this is my opportunity to highlight the amazing work and the achievements that the community is doing in an intimate face-to-face style interview and discussion. So we first interviewed Alexander Thomas on that show in our pilot, who's a Green Ronin published world builder and novelist, as well as a streaming DM and an all-around great guy. So I hope you enjoy that. That's the first episode of Dungeon Masterful. But this week we'll be releasing a second episode on Wednesday that features Nikki Ewart of Nerdy Chicken. And we talked a lot about like the geek chic sweep that's happening right now, as well as the Canadian nerd movement under the hashtag Canardian column that Nikki really spearheaded. So kudos to her for that. She also hosts a distribution platform with an amazing group of D&D creators, including Angeli, you might be familiar with. She does a lot of great miniature painting and custom painting. Jasmine Medieval Minis, who does a lot of great like miniature prop building and set terrain. Some really incredible creators doing amazing work, and the world over. It's global. So you want to make Dungeon Masterful part of your regular streaming program on your podcast app of choice. You can search for ShambazzleGames or Dungeon Masterful. This falls under the Speaking Common podcast. So everything I publish comes out under Speaking Common. And then there are 3 segments, including the Dungeons and Dragons Weekly News or D&D News. We have Dungeon Masterful, which is that community showcase and interview segment. And we have Unearthed Arcana, which is where I read the most recent Unearthed Arcana release so that you don't have to. So I hope you check it out. And if you do, be sure to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or just subscribe on the app of your choice. I'd just be happy for you to hear it, honestly. Another important item that I'm focused on right now is the design and launch of my Patreon platform. I love doing this. I produce an awful lot of content week to week. It takes up a lot of time, and I'm at the point where I have to try and make it somewhat viable. So I'm looking at very light steps towards that end. Now, of course, I would never seek compensation from this community for anything that I don't feel I'm adding significant value for. And when I sat down and thought about what can I do that would be attractive to a community to participate on that level, and I thought about exclusivity like special Patreon Discord options, weekly Ask Me Anythings, and interactive web conferences, things like that I'm looking at offering. But realistically, at the end of the day, I'm a lifer DM, right? All of my content is focused on Dungeon Master tips, tools, application, and I thought the best thing that I can probably offer this community that everybody really seems to want is games. So in the new year, I'll be looking at a platform where I can tier one-shots, maybe micro campaigns, invite people into an online platform, and get people playing Dungeons and Dragons. And in that mix, I'm also looking at a higher tier where we'll actually have a long-running, persistent custom campaign for Patreon members only. I'm really excited for that to shape up, so stay tuned. And of course, I'll have more information available to you because we want the community to come on board and be able to roll some dice with us, at least in a virtual sense, if not in a personal sense or in a live setting. So beyond that, I've made a couple of resolutions to myself for the new year as we move into 2020, and among those are a promise to be more involved in the local D&D community here in Toronto and the GTA. I want to get out there and actually experience some of the other people who are living in this space, rather than just hanging out behind the screen. While I love it so much, I want to get out there, meet people, understand what they're doing, maybe participate in some gaming groups, and certainly make space for convention involvement. So to that end, I've promised myself that I'm going to attend at least one Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop focused conference in 2020. I've got my eye on FanX in September, but there's another one called Breakout Con, which is focused on tabletop gaming specifically, which happens earlier in the new year. So I'm really looking forward to trying to apply myself to participate in a con that sees me at least in a professional capacity, whether it's running games or moderating or speaking on a panel. I don't care. I just want to be a little bit more involved than just participating as an attendee. I want to contribute, and I want to offer something to those communities too, and meet all the wonderful people who exist in the D&D community in Toronto and Canada overall. Of course, as I mentioned, I'm focusing on getting season 1 of the Charisma Check actual play podcast out before the end of the holiday, or at least early in the new year, and then finally the launch and reveal of the Patreon platform. So those are my 4 key things that I want to focus on getting done as part of my New Year's resolution, and that's why I'm winding down on content for the next couple of weeks so we can come back strong in 2020. Okay, so that's enough blabber from me about what's happening in the community as far as updates go. Let's jump into Twitter and community news.